Glad to see you here, Nightingale, Wednesday Nightmare. Glad to see you here, Mr. Chris. I wasn't able to do a live stream last week because I was dealing with some health issues, and it was those health issues that prevented me from being able to do a show. Now, over the last year, I have been dealing with some issues as related to heartburn that are connected to anxiety that I have had a problem with for years. Now, ever since about February of 2022, I have been dealing with heartburn that has been bothering me. And this heartburn was something that was really triggered by anxiety I was having as related to my financial situation, because over the last couple of months, the AdSense dollars have not been coming in like they used to, and my book sales have been slowing. And as the result of the AdSense not coming in like it used to, and the book sales going down, I have had a lot of anxiety related to my financial situation, and that anxiety has really affected my physical health. And as it's affected my physical health, I was dealing with this heartburn that just wouldn't go away. And I wound up going to a doctor to take a look at it. They gave me some anti heartburn medicine. However, I found out it was really just, again, partly my anxieties, because after I went to the doctor, I got this jury duty notice, and then my anxiety got worse. And after my anxiety got worse, I started to feel tightness really in my chest, to the point where it was just feeling like almost like a heart attack. So I was extremely stressed out, and I've been trying to deal with this stress and manage the whole stress of things as related to my financial situation. So that's why I wasn't able to do a live stream, because I've been dealing with a lot of health issues that are as related to my anxiety. So I really wanted to do a live stream last week, but I just couldn't do it because my physical health wasn't in a good place. And over the last week, I've been trying to just deal with my health issues. So that's why I haven't been making videos like I used to. And these days, I'm just going to have to cut back on making content. I mean, every day I was making about 2 to 3 videos a day. And that came up to about 14, 15 videos a week. And I was doing that because I was trying to keep the revenue coming in, but I'm not really able to do that anymore. So I'm trying to cut down on things to cut down on stress, because I heard about how Kevin Samuels had passed away from high blood pressure, and I don't want to go out like Kevin Samuels. So I want to try to manage the stress as related to things. So I'm going to try to keep producing content, but I'm going to try to bring, I'm gonna have to cut back on the content a bit so I can go out here and rest. So that's the reason why I couldn't do a live stream last week. But I'm hoping to continue to produce quality content, because that's my ultimate goal. Now, last week I wanted to go out here and do a live stream on Tyler Perry, and I wanted to talk about how Black women had canceled Tyler Perry after he made a video where he talked about how Black women should settle for less. Now, last week I had worked on an entire clip that I had planned to share with everyone as related to Tyler Perry. I got to go and get that clip in a minute. 1 second. I got to get that clip, but that's what I had planned for last week's live stream, but I wasn't able to do that live stream. But I'm going to do it tonight, because I really wanted to go out here and, get this live stream out here as related to Tyler Perry, and really get that content out here. So I did wind up just I think I wound up deleting that content, sadly. So I had the video. I don't know what happened to it. Let me see. Yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can get. Yep. Sadly, I don't have that clip anymore. I had basically had downloaded the entire video of the Tyler Perry interview with one of his own employees, where he made the statement where he said that black women just need to settle for less. And that's when he got the blowback from black women. Now, Tyler Perry, in that interview, he had stated that black women need to go out here and get with the guy who can pay an electric bill, and basically did the same thing that Kevin Samuels did when Kevin Samuels went out here and refused to stand up to Nicki Minaj. And what Tyler Perry did was he went out here and told black women they just need to settle for any guy. And that ran diametrically opposed to everything that he promoted on many of his movies and in many of his interviews past, where he went out here telling black women to go out here and go on this quest for the quote unquote good man. And Tyler Perry went out here promoting the whole ideal of the good man for many years. And now he's went out here in this interview and he's telling black women that they need to go out here and settle for less. So this is the thing that really set off a lot of black women, because they have been sold this whole ideal of going out here and getting the good man. They have been sold the narrative of getting the ideal guy, the guy that was promoted in mainstream media like Madison Avenue and Hollywood for years. They've been promoting this high value man who makes six figures, who has an Ivy League degree, drives expensive luxury cars, and lives in high-end areas. They have been promoting this narrative for years as the thing that black women should go out here and get. And what we had with Tyler Perry was, instead of him continuing to toe his narrative, what he does is go out here and tell black women that they just need to go out here and take that dude who was out here working at any job and wants to tell black women they need to settle for that guy. That's what Tyler Perry went out here and was talking about with one of his employees as related to them in this quest that they've been going on. And this is, again, it created a firestorm of controversy among black women who have a right to feel betrayed because they were sold this whole message. Again, this was a message that was not only sold by Tyler Perry, it was sold by lots of other people, including Steve Harvey and Terry McMillan and Oprah Winfrey. They all promoted this whole narrative around the ideal man. And as they promoted this narrative around the ideal man, this whole narrative basically was one that left a lot of black women on a wild goose chase. And as they went on this wild goose chase for this ideal man, what happened was they wound up wasting much of their prime years of their 20s and even their 30s. They wound up missing out on lots of quality men, not understanding you were missing out because what you were chasing was a social construct that was created by Madison Avenue in Hollywood, and a social construct that would not exist in a white supremacist country, because the whole ideal of a quote unquote good man runs, again, counter to white supremacy as related to what they want to present as related to black manhood. No, what they did when they created this construct was, again, something to get black women chasing a fantasy, all while they passed by many of the real men who were running into resistance from the system of white supremacy. Many good brothers who went out here and were trying to become good brothers who had trying to work the jobs they could find. I mean, a lot of guys were out here. We had the college educations. We were out here looking for the good jobs, but the problem we ran into was something, again, I call the HR brick wall. And this HR brick wall was the thing that kept a lot of brothers from being able to go out here and be the kinds of men that black women would so-called say is attractive. But the whole thing is, a lot of guys, they were out here, they were trying to go out here and put in that work. But the whole thing is, as every time you got a guy who was out here putting in that work, Madison Avenue in Hollywood would go out here and move the goalpost and make an even more exaggerated caricature of this quote unquote good man. But no guy could ever meet those standards, and no guy could ever meet those standards because that man basically did not exist. And what happened with Tyler Perry after he told many of these black women to go out here and settle is they have bought into this delusion for multiple generations. And as they've bought into this delusion for multiple generations, what has happened is we've got a lot of black women who just are holding on to this delusion, and they're holding on to this delusion for dear life. And they will buy into this delusion because, again, you've got white supremacy telling them this is what they need to get, but what they want to get just does not exist. I mean, I go in depth on this in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. I mean, I go deep in depth on this about how a lot of Black women, they have been brainwashed to buy into this ideal of the they've been brainwashed to buy into this ideal. And what's happened to Tyler Perry is now that he's trying to so-called tell the truth, these women don't want to believe the truth because they're spellbound, and because they're spellbound, they want to try to find this man that will allow them to fit into the black box that's acceptable to white people as an ideal couple. But the whole thing is that they don't understand that ideal is not real. A lot of these women, the thing that's happening now is that they're so caught up in their quest for white validation that all they want to do is believe that this ideal is something that's possible. They want to believe that there are a whole bunch of 6-foot guys who have 6 figures and a 6-inch carbon rod, and that there is definitely one of these guys out here. And they want to believe that this kind of guy is out here. But when you look at the statistics, the chances of many of these black women getting this kind of guy are slim to none, because only less than 1% of black men make that 6 figures. Only less than 0.5% of black men have that 6-pack and the 6-inch carbon rod. So the chances of a woman finding that kind of guy is slim to none. But you have many black women chasing this dream. And as they chase this dream, they just don't understand that dream is never going to come true. And this is where Tyler Perry basically was trying to tell them the truth, but they didn't want to hear the truth because they have been sold the lie, and they want to continue believing the lie because a white person told them. So that's why the entire group of black women who used to support Tyler Perry have basically turned on him. They've turned on him because he's telling them that the lies that white feminists and white men have told them aren't true. And because he's told them that these lies aren't true, this is where they turn on him and want to cancel him, because they have been told they can get this ideal. But the whole thing is, if you look at the real world, there's no way possible to achieve this, but they're going to keep chasing this delusion, even when they have been told that it's not possible. And the reason why they're going to continue to chase it is because you've got a black man telling them of the truth. And the thing with most of these black women is the only way they're going to believe something's true is if a white man tells them. And a white man isn't going to tell these black women that this lie is a lie, because they make money off that lie, because this is how they profit from black women, by keeping black women insecure. And they keep black women insecure and chasing an ideal. They can go out here and sell her lots of products, from the comfort foods she eats that make her obese, to the numerous self-help books from simps like Steve Harvey, to having her continue to watch most of the gender war videos. This is how they keep the black woman chasing this delusion. And as she's invested in this delusion, she cannot live in the real world with real people. And that's the thing that we're seeing with most of these black women. They just are on this treadmill looking to continue to believe, oh, there's this 6 foot high value man who makes six figures with a 6 inch carbon rod, and he will accept her as she is. But there's no guy out here like this at all. And many of these women, even though they make very good money at very good jobs, they don't see that water seeks its own level and like attracts like. And the reason why you're not attracting any men to you is because you are just not, you're radiating all of this negative energy. And this negative energy is the reason why you're attracting all these pookies and ray-rays to you instead of the quality man that is out there who is a reflection of you. And that's the other problem that many Black women have, that they're out here. They don't understand that you're only going to get who is a reflection of you. And if you reflect and radiate a lot of negativity, you're not going to attract anybody positive to you. So you're not going to attract anybody out here at all. No, what you're going to do is, again, attract the guys from the bottom, because this is how you see yourself. And because these women basically see themselves in a negative fashion, they don't really see how you're attracting this kind of guy. I mean, one of the things I learned back when I was a teenager is, if you want to stop attracting hood rats and ghetto chicks, you want to go out here and make changes to yourself. You want to go out here and make changes so that you can reflect what you really are. And if you reflect what you really are, then you're going to find yourself gravitating and attracting yourself to people who look like what you are. I mean, if you're true to yourself, and you're about something, you're going to attract women who are about something, who want to help you build. But the whole thing is, with many Black women, their whole mindset is completely messed up, because they've got this whole mindset from white supremacy and white feminism that has them believing that they can be the head and that the man is supposed to follow them. And this was something that Tyler Perry put in a lot of his movies. He oftentimes put the idea in Black women's heads that there was this submissive male who was going to be out here, who was going to be the quote unquote good man. But there's no guy like that in the real world, because the man that God created is a leader. The man that God created is a head. And the man that God created wants to go out here and find a woman who will be wanting to follow him. But many Black women who watch things like Tyler Perry and read books like Steve Harvey, they think that a man is supposed to follow the woman. But the whole thing is that just runs diametrically opposed to God and how he created men and women. Because as God created men and women, the whole thing is, if a man is out here following behind a woman, most women will not respect that man. And this is where many Black women have a problem as related to relationships. They're looking for the man who's going to follow them and submit to them, but they don't understand on a natural level, they're never going to respect that man. And I talk about this in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. They don't respect that man because that man is someone they see like a child. And they really are disgusted by that guy because he comes across as really weak. They don't see that man as somebody they respect, because what they want is a man to take a leadership role. They want the man to be a leader who is going to set direction and tone. That is the natural way things go. But most Black women, they want to go opposed to God's order, thinking that they can run the man. But if you try to run the man, all the man is going to do is resist you and then eventually leave you. And that's just the way things go as related to relationships, because that's the way God created men and women to be. God created the man to be a leader. He created the man to be a head. He created the man to be the one who women want to follow. But the problem is in the Black community, because many Black people have bought into white supremacy more than God, and especially with a lot of Black women and a lot of these beta Black men, a lot of them have bought into the idea that, oh, we want to have the woman lead. But the woman leading is not something that will ever turn into a healthy working relationship that's interdependent. No, the woman leading the man is always going to be a codependent relationship, and that relationship will be one that feels completely unnatural. And it's gonna feel completely unnatural because no man wants to be sitting up there submitting to a woman. No man wants to be follow a woman. No man wants to go out here and be dictated to by a woman. No, that's the kind of relationship that's codependent because a son wants to have that relationship with his mother early on, but as that boy grows into manhood, he will go out here and start breaking those that codependent relationship and start setting boundaries. And as he sets the boundaries for himself, the mother is going to pull away because she understands that she has to cut the apron strings in order for that boy to grow up to become a man who sets a direction and takes the lead over his own life. So that's what happens with a natural, healthy, interdependent relationship under God's order. But we have with many Black women, they're trying to fit white supremacy's reversed order into their lives. And as they look to fit this reversed order into their lives, nothing ever works because what they do is put a square peg into a round hole. And when you put a square peg into a round hole, what happens is it doesn't fit. But we have a lot of Black women who want to force it. And as they try to force it, what that does is make both of the people break. And it makes them break mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, because when you have a person trying to force something to work that doesn't flow organically, what happens is those people break because the things aren't working and they're trying to force it to work. And if you try to force something to work, what's going to happen is it's going to wind up breaking. But you can't explain this to the modern Black woman because the white supremacist told her this is the way things are supposed to work, but it isn't going to work because that's just not how things work. Now, Tyler Perry basically, as he came on with this whole interview, he wanted to tell Black women they needed to, again, settle for less, settle for that guy who is out here and just can pay an electric bill, but that's just not going to work because, again, women don't want no guy who can just pay an electric bill. No, women want a man to take the lead, and they want a man to set order as related to the home that they have with that man. So when he sat there and gave that advice, I just cringed when I heard it. When I heard him make that statement, I just had to shake my head because I'm sitting there going, you're telling people something that I know isn't true. I mean, no woman respects a guy who's out here and he's out here can pay one bill. No, they don't respect that man because that's not a man they see as a leader. That's not a man who they see is out here setting order. That is not a man that they see out here handling business and taking care of business. No, when they look at that guy who is out here and he can pay an electric bill, they look at that guy as weak. Excuse me, I had to sneeze, but they look at that guy and they go, I mean, he can only pay one bill. That's not something that they can look at that man and respect in any way, shape, or form. No, when they look at this dude and they see him basically out here and he's just paying one bill, that's something that they cannot respect on any level. So Tyler Perry basically selling people a whole lot of garbage, and I had to look at it and go, this is something that just runs diametrically opposed to everything that women want as naturally from a man, because most women want that man to take that leadership role and set order, be able to take care of business. They don't settle for some guy who can pay an electric bill. No, that's what the son does with his mama, and that's not a man in any way, shape, or form. And the big problem is that I also see with a lot of Black women, as they've watched a lot of this Tyler Perry nonsense, is they never really got a true definition of manhood. No, they never really understood what a man was about. Now, part of that is due to white supremacy going out here and creating these misandrous anti-black man narratives. And a lot of women buying into it in the 60s and the 70s with the feminist movement and kicking the father out of the home. And then for the last 40 to 60 years, a lot of black women never growing up without fathers. And because they don't grow up with fathers, what happens is many of these women don't know what a man is as related to values and character. Many of these women don't know what to look for in a man because they never had a father model manhood for them. And many of these women don't know what to look for as related to values and character in a man. And as they go out here on their feelings, they always go looking for the cute guy or the guy with the swag. And what happens is these women wind up getting with the wrong man because they don't have the understanding of what to look for in a man because they never saw manhood modeled for them. Now, someone who has seen manhood modeled for them can quickly identify what is values and character in a man. They can study that man, and they will go out here and grab those quality men right out of the market. Unfortunately, many black women have been taught to follow feminists, not women, feminists like Oprah Winfrey and manginas like Tyler Perry. And as they follow these individuals, what they do is they go out here and get a dysfunctional man. And that dysfunctional man is somebody who just can't really take the leadership role. No, he's a male, but he's not a man. No, he's just a complete just jackass all around. Thank you, Soul Survivor, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. He asks, is it safe to assume Tyler Perry is a white supremacist plant? I wouldn't say he's a white supremacist plant. I'd just say he's a useful idiot because for me, Tyler Perry is not very smart. I mean, here's a guy who basically just came out here and was somebody they could use to push their narratives. And he's not really, again, a very smart man. He's just a tool that white supremacy uses to further their agendas because they see his entertainment fitting within their narrative. And they don't mind him doing business as long as he's on their script. Again, I see him in the same way I saw the late Kevin Samuels, in that as long as he was saying what they wanted to say, they allowed him to stay on their platforms. And that's the only reason why they have Tyler Perry out here. He's just a guy who's just a clown. So all around, he's just a joke. And Mr. Chris makes a good point. Yeah, a lot of these modern women, they're getting laid, but they're not getting wifed or girlfriended because most guys, when we see a woman like this who's got all of this modern feminism, there's no way we can work with them. And the main reason why we can't work with them is because these women don't understand their roles as related to the Bible of being a helpmeet and a support. And they don't trust in the man that God wants to give them to lead them at all. And because they don't trust in the man that God wants to lead them, they can't be a part of God's order. No, they want to try to fit this man within the order of white supremacy. But the order of white supremacy has no place for a black man outside of being at the bottom of the world. And if he's at the bottom of the world, he cannot be anybody that anybody can work with, because in the system of white supremacy, that man is nobody anybody respects at all. So the black woman is trying to, again, fit the square peg into the round hole, not understanding that this task is an impossible one. And it's impossible because, again, you cannot take a man that is reviled by a system like white supremacy and elevate him to a position of power. And he cannot come from a position of power from a position of submission. I mean, how can a man be put into a leadership role if he is in a submissive position? That's the critical question many black women have not answered. I mean, they have not answered the question, how can you elevate this man to a leadership position when you are the one who is out here developing him the way a mother nurtures a son? That's another thing that a lot of black women don't understand about the guy who is out here just can pay an electric bill. That's not a man that you respect, and you don't respect him because he's not fit. He's not able to take that lead. No, he's a follower at best. And if you've got to pick him up and clean him up, like Tyler Perry proposes, then you're not going to see that man as a man. No, if you got to fix him and clean him up, there's no way you're going to see him in a way that you respect. You're going to see him as your son or a child, but you're not going to see him as a man. No, a man is somebody who you know that he can go out here and take care of his own business. He's a man who can go out here and solve problems. He's a man who can make sure that things are in order and people are taken care of, and you become emotionally secure because you can fall into your role as a helpmeet because he's out here setting a direction and a tone, and he can set a direction and a tone that makes you feel secure. Oh, this man knows what he's doing. This man is handling business. His bills are paid. His money is taken care of. His money is in order. He's got everything taken care of. That's the things that make a woman look at a man and say, oh, that's a man. He's got his stuff together. And she can go out here and look to say, okay, now when it's time to build, I can help that man build because he's getting things together and has a course and a direction that he wants to go in. I mean, that's what women do when they see a guy like he may be starting out. He may not have much money in the beginning. But he may have like a job making a couple of dollars an hour, or he might be working for like $300-400 a week. But if he's got a plan and he's got goals that he's going to set, women can look at that guy and say, okay, this guy's got a direction that he's going in. He's got to focus on something. So I know that he's working towards a goal, and I want to help him meet that goal. And that's where you get the women who want to go out here and ride with a dude because they see this dude has stuff together. It's not no guy who's, oh, I only make enough money to pay an electric bill. As I see it, if you're a guy who only has enough money to pay an electric bill at mama's house, you shouldn't be looking at women at all because you're not ready for no women at this point. No, a man has to understand that there's a time when you can go out here and say you're ready for a relationship. And the time that you're ready for a relationship is usually when your money is in order, because that's the time you want to bring a partner in for a relationship, is when your paper is straight and your house is in order. I mean, usually most guys, they want to bring a woman in once they've gotten their job and they're situated at that job for about a year or so, or 2 years. They got their money in the bank saved up. They've got their place. I mean, that's where the guy wants to come in traditionally and start talking about girlfriend. But sadly, we got a lot of males who grew up in single mother households, and they want to go out here and get this girlfriend, not understanding that the time for relationships is when you become an established man. And when you're not an established man, you shouldn't be out here looking for no women. You should be looking to get yourself together. And guys who have themselves together, they create a standard for themselves. And under that standard, they're not looking to settle for less. But Tyler Perry tells women they need to settle for less. No, a man has real standards, and those standards are connected to values and character. Meanwhile, many Black women's standards are not any standards at all. They are ideals created by white supremacy, and these ideals are having them chase a construct of a man that they made up. And again, because this is a construct, this construct can constantly change because they create this construct because the ultimate goal is to have you chasing after a goal. And as you chase this goal, they have the goalpost move from time to time because what they want to do is have you continuing to chase the ideal and never achieve the real. The ultimate goal of these constructs is to have you chasing this ideal of this, again, man who just does not exist. If you really look at the system of white supremacy, how many guys out here are making six figures? How many of these guys are 6 feet tall? And when you do the math, those guys don't exist. And they're sitting there having you chase this guy. And sadly, as you chase this guy, you wind up missing out on your prime years. And as you miss out on your prime years, you miss out on many opportunities at quality men. And you wind up disqualifying all of these quality men who have good jobs sometimes, men who are working on building things, but you don't want to support those guys. No, what you want is this millionaire that's out, that you've been told that's out here. But when you do the math on that millionaire, when you do the math, you just have to really think about it. I mean, if there are 13 million black people, according to the census, I mean, and you break that in half, I mean, that's about maybe 4, 5 million black women. I mean, how are 4 or 5 million black women going to get with maybe what 100,000 men, or at best? I mean, there's mathematically, I don't even say 100,000. I say maybe about 10,000 men out of black men. So you've got 10,000 men and you've got 4 million black women. When you do the math, it's mathematically impossible for any of these women to find what they're looking for. I mean, mathematically, it's impossible because when you break down that 10,000 men, several of them are alphabet, some of them are already pursuing white and non-black women. So again, the chances of those women finding that guy that Madison Avenue in Hollywood told them is out there is slim to none. So these women are basically chasing a delusion. And as they chase this delusion, they wind up missing out on real time in their lives. They wind up missing out on real joy and real peace. They wind up missing out on opportunities that they could have with guys they could have given it a shot to. But because they're wedded to the idea that a white supremacist told them exists, they're out here looking to chase this fantasy, and they don't understand this fantasy does not even exist. And when you have the guy who was out here enabling the fantasy, telling you the fantasy doesn't exist, that's where you see that many of these black women who are modern women are just mentally and spiritually lost. And I have to say spiritually lost because the Most High, again, when he made women, he made them to serve men. But these women are so wedded to white supremacy and so wedded to the ideals created by the media arm of white supremacy that they don't see any real people. And they're just sitting there still looking for this perfect guy, still waiting for this perfect guy, reminding me much of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, like Mrs. Havisham, who is basically has her cake that's rotting, and she's sitting there in her wedding dress, waiting for this man to come and marry her. But there's no man to come and marry many of these black women because he's a figment of their imagination. He's a figment of their imagination that is not real, and that guy isn't going to come to certain, even if he existed, he wasn't going to come to certain places. I mean, some of them, they're sitting there still waiting for this millionaire to come down to places like the hood. I mean, they're waiting with this delusion. Oh, this millionaire is going to come down to see them, come down to give them, see them out of a room and say how beautiful they are and sweep them off their feet like something out of a soap opera. You're waiting for something that it's just not even possible to even happen, even when you consider logic and how people are attracted to each other. I mean, people, again, are naturally attracted to those who are like themselves, and because they are attracted to who they are alike, they go out here and they're attracted to what is a reflection of them. And even if you are this so-called single, successful, well-educated person, and you're attracted to Pookie, well, maybe the reason why you're attracted to Pookie is because you have the same values as this dude, and that's something many black women don't want to talk about. Hey, I'm attracting who I am, and maybe I'm attracting who I am because I've bought into a lot of bad ideals. I've bought into a lot of bad ideas, and I'm not really approaching things in a proper fashion. No, she's out here thinking that she can make the man be what she wants, mold this man, and that's a completely foolish idea. You cannot mold a guy or fix a guy. No, like I talk about in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, the man is as is, and he's as is because as his mother raised him, this is who he is, and there is no fixing a dude. No, you get him as he is out here. So this is what you're going to see. What you see right here is what you're going to get. And this is what many black women never got as they watched Tyler Perry movies, which gave you these simp charmings. I mean, in all of these movies, they always give you this simp charming, and what they don't understand is that the simp charming is just the other side of the jerk who was beating up the woman in the movie. So she's basically not changing anything. No, she's getting two sides of the same bent coin, but she's thinking she's getting a change. But as somebody who has studied psychology of relationships, you're not the only way to get change is you have to break out of the paradigm of failure. And this is something many Black women don't want to break out of, is the paradigm of failure, because they fear stepping out of their comfort zone. They will sit there and continue to deal with guys of the same type of values and character, instead of saying, hey, I got to take a look at myself. I got to take a look at what I'm doing and how I'm living. And if they took that look at how they were living, they would realize that the way that they are living is outside the order of God. The approaches they have to men are outside the order of God. The way of life that they're living is outside the order of God, because you're not going to find a man who is going to submit to you. You're not going to find a man who's going to want to be led by you and subjugated by you. And even if you did find that kind of guy, and yes, there are some simps out here who will go out here and try to be like this, you will never respect that man, because when you look at that man, you see nothing but weakness. You see nothing but cowardice. You see nothing there that you would respect or admire in that man. No, when you look at that man, you basically see a child standing in front of you, and no woman wants to be involved with a guy who's like a child. No, a woman just is not attracted to that kind of guy. But when many Black women, they don't really look at relationships. No, they want to be told what they want to hear. And that's one of the things that Tyler Perry did that has so many women so mad these days. He enabled them by telling them what they wanted to hear for over 2 to 3 decades. I mean, for the last 2 to 3 decades, he just told them what they wanted to hear. Oh, a good man is coming. A good man is out here. He's going to put up with all your stuff. But he never presented a story which made an assessment to those women that let them see how they were living wasn't making things work out. Now, when I write romances, it's completely different. I mean, I remember when I was writing A Recipe for Success, I went out here and many Black women were saying, oh, it's the most balanced picture of a relationship I've ever seen. He shows the flaws in the women, just like he shows the flaws in the men. And he shows how the women make mistakes. Like with the Cassandra character, I showed how she was arrogant, hadn't had a sense of entitlement, and showed how she had to come out of this in order to work with Simon on the business deal. And she had to learn how to work with this man and also work through all of the hurts that she had with the other man who was on the down low. Now, I also do this in books like Temptation of John Haynes. I show the flaws in esteeming John Haynes. And again, you have to show how a lot of women, they all have issues and stuff that they have to work on. This is where Black women never got the truth told to them, because over the last 40 to 50 years, we've had women like Oprah Winfrey and people like Terry McMillan enabling many of these Black women, making excuses for them. And as they made excuses for them, it was never anything that showed them accountability. And that's another problem that has all these women upset at Tyler Perry. They were never taught about accountability. And hey, if the whole thing is, if you want this kind of guy, you're going to have to go out here and be a certain kind of woman. And again, he's telling them to settle for less. But the whole thing is that you don't even know what a man is, because you never had a father. You never had manhood modeled for you. You don't understand what a man is looking for in a woman. Moreover, you don't understand the things that Black men deal with, because a lot of Black men, when we're in that job market, we're dealing with a lot of stress. We're dealing with a lot of headaches, because we're having a lot of racists coming at us. We're having a lot of these other issues coming at us. And we're in a job where people are trying to get us fired at every moment. And what further compounds the stress we have is coming home to a Black woman with a lot of unrealistic expectations and a head that's filled with completely distorted ideals as related to the whole situation. I mean, they don't know how to work with you because they're trying to work this fantasy into reality, but that's working again against the man who is dealing with white supremacy and racism. And as that man is dealing with white supremacy and racism, instead of him coming home to an ally that's going to help him be able to navigate his stress and navigate his anxiety and navigate all the pressures he's dealing with, he has to come home to another adversary who is looking to compete against him. That's the thing that really frustrates a lot of black men that guys like Tyler Perry won't talk about, because Tyler Perry for years was pandering to black women, trying to go out here and get those dollars to build his billion-dollar empire. And now that he's built his billion-dollar empire and got his money, now he's going to try to tell black women the truth that many black men have been telling them. That's what they're trying. That's what he's trying to do. But the whole thing is, it's too late. No, you sold them a fantasy for too long. You sold them this fantasy, and now they've bought into this fantasy to the point where they are deifying the fantasy and have turned the fantasy into a religion. And as they've turned this fantasy into a religion, they believe this fantasy more than the word of God. And that's where a lot of these women basically have violated the law of the Most High, who said, "You shall have no other gods before me," in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament told you to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and spirit. So these women basically love white supremacy more than they love God. And they want to hold on to this ideal and this social construct more than the word of God. And even when guys like Tyler Perry try to tell them the truth, they will hold on to this because, again, they believe this word like it's religion. They believe, like Linus in The Great Pumpkin, believing that the good man is going to come out of the sky and he's going to, sweep them off their feet and take them to happily ever after. But this man does not exist at all. And that's where they get it twisted. So that's why they're all mad at Tyler Perry and want to cancel him. Now, he's now telling them that they're so deluded that there's no coming back from this delusion, because, again, many of these women, again, deify and worship the ideals presented by white supremacy of the good man more than they do reality at this point. And this is where many of these women, we see that they're Arkham certified. And I've seen this with guys, they post this on Facebook as related to many of the dating profiles, where you've got women talking about they are obese, or talking about they're a single mom, and they're talking about they want the guy with who's 6 feet tall and an athlete and makes six figures and must drive a luxury car and must have an Ivy League education. I mean, they're sitting there creating this social construct of a man and hoping some guy will come out here and want to look at them and see them as a reflection of themselves. But guys on that level don't even read no online dating. No, guys on that level, they don't care about online dating. No, most of those guys, what happens is those guys get hooked up by their friends, or they go out to places and the women come to them. So you have these women who think that they are some sort of prize and some millionaire is coming to them, but nobody is coming to them from that social circle. Those social circles don't even travel with each other, but you'll have a lot of these women sitting there because they've watched a lot of Tyler Perry and listened to a lot of Steve Harvey and other simps who have enabled them, having them believe, oh, this guy is going to come and he's going to come and be their great savior. But this guy ain't coming to save you. No, usually those Ivy League guys, and again, I went to work with several of them, and I had a family member who went to school with several of them. Many of these guys, they basically are out here with white and non-black women in a lot of cases. And a lot of these guys, their values are completely different. I mean, I've run into a couple of them. They're really snobbish and extremely arrogant. And they're not the kind of guys you would even want to deal with because they're such jerks. But the whole thing is you got a lot of black women who believe, oh, this kind of guy is out here. And in a lot of cases, these guys are not even meeting all the criteria, because a lot of these guys who make that kind of money, they're kind of short. Some of them are kind of overweight. I mean, some of them, none of them are like this Denzel looking kind of guy at all. No, they're kind of average looking at best. But you'll have a lot of these women, they're still thinking, oh, I'm looking for this hot looking Denzel, Michael Jai White looking guy who makes six figures and works an executive job and is got a fleet of Mercedes and Lexus. And again, they want a guy that they can show off to their friends, similar to the neighborhood dope man of the 80s. And that's the model that they're really going for. They're really going for the they're really going for these kind of guys, and they want that kind of guy to be an executive. But executives, and again, guys like this, they're working 12, 13-hour days. They're working long hours. They ain't really got no time for no woman like that who's out here looking to live the high life. No, they're looking for a partner that's going to work for them, work with them, and that's what they're looking for. But the whole thing is that these women, their heads are so caught up in white supremacy's delusion, they can't see the reality out here as related to black men. And then when Tyler Perry tries to tell them to settle for less, he's not really coming from reality, because there's a lot of working class brothers out there making good money. And there's a lot of guys out here, they're making money, but they're not making money in the traditional way, like working a corporate job, because corporate America don't want no black men in many cases. So the black guys who do or out here, they may be working blue collar, and a lot of blue collar guys, they make really good money. Guys like auto mechanics, guys like electricians, carpenters, guys who drive in transit. They don't want those kind of guys, because they cannot go out here and flout that guy to their friends and say, "Oh, I got me a high value, man." They can't go out here and brag about that kind of guy, because he's out here doing blue collar work. He's coming home with dirty fingernails. They want the guy who's all decked out in designer clothes and driving big cars and living in a big neighborhood. That's what they want a guy to do. But the whole thing is, most black men, we don't usually get those kind of jobs, because usually when we try to get those jobs, we run into the HR brick wall. And the few that do get in there usually are a lot of the bootlick types. So usually most of the brothers, when we do get work, we get work, and again, in the back, like the back in receiving and places like that, we get to do the heavy labor. That's the kind of jobs many brothers get. So she's looking for this guy, and she wants to laugh at those kind of guys who are working blue collar, wants to laugh at the guys who are out here putting in the work on places like transit and the post office. But that's the jobs that most brothers can get, because in this white supremacist society, again, black men, we're not usually out here with the executive positions. I mean, the only way we become executives is if we have our own business. If we have our own business, then we can say we're an executive. I mean, like, I'm running SJS Direct as a publisher. That's the business that I'm running these days. Again, I can say that like that. But in most cases, if you're working for somebody else, most of this black men you see are going to be in the back, not in the front. And the few that you see that are in the front, usually those guys they're fighting for their lives, because I've had those kind of jobs, and you're fighting for your life, because everybody's trying to get you fired. I mean, everybody's trying to get you out that job. And again, you have guys like Tyler Perry who want to make it look like, oh, there's this guy that's out there, but that guy, if he's out there, he ain't really checking for most of the black women. No, he's a bootlick in most cases. So he's not checking for black women. He's just checking out for Becky. But Tyler Perry wants to sell you these fantasies. And the sad part is, after he's sold you the fantasies, now he wants to come back to you with with the reality. And he wants to come back to the reality that, oh, you have to settle for this dude. But the whole thing is that the dude that he's trying to tell you to settle for is Pookie. And again, no woman really wants to settle for Pookie, because Pookie's not ready to take the lead. No, Pookie is not ready to take a lead of anything. And if he, again, is talking about all he can pay is an electric bill, then he's not ready to take on the role of a man. He's not ready to take on the role of a head of household. He's not ready to take on a leadership role. No, that's not a man at all. That's a male. And Tyler Perry, again, misleading black women. who are irate because they can't get their fantasy. But the whole thing is that there are a lot of guys out here looking to go out here and again put in that work. I mean, I look to put in that work every day, whether I'm looking for one of these full-time jobs or I'm working on my SJS Direct books. I mean, I'm looking to put in that work. But the whole thing is that many of these women out here who have been out here I've run into, many of them, they have this unrealistic picture where they're looking for something that does not exist. And because they're looking for someone who does not exist, what they winding up going home alone. And they go home alone because you cannot get a real man from a social construct created of a fantasy. You cannot get a real relationship from something made out of a fantasy, and even worse, a fantasy made that's an imitation of a white woman. Many black women are looking to become the next Carrie Bradshaw from Sex in the City, or they're looking to be like one of these white women, but a black man can't give you the same life as a white woman. No, a working class brother can't give you the same things because under the system of white supremacy, a black man has a hard time making money out here. I mean, he has a hard time going out here getting paper because it's hard for him to keep a job. So it's hard for him to do that. And then he's trying to stay where he is. But they have it where, oh, this guy's going to be a millionaire. He's going to be able to do all this stuff. It's like, no, if he can go out here and keep a roof over your head and keep the bills paid, that's all he can do. And again, that's if he can do that, he's able to have a relationship. But the whole thing is they're expecting this guy to be this millionaire. And how many black millionaires are out there? Again, critical question. I would like to ask many guys out here like Tyler Perry and Steve Harvey. I mean, how many black millionaires are out here? I mean, and how many of these guys, want to go out here and get involved with all those 4 million women? I mean, there's 4 million women out here, I would say, or even 5 million women. And the number of black millionaires is a less than 1%. And the guys even making six figures is about maybe 3 or 4%. So you've got all these women looking to try to get one kind of guy, but they're overlooking a lot of guys who are out here making decent money. And again, they only see the guy for his money. They don't see the values or the character, but they miss out on quality guys because they're chasing this fantasy. And now Tyler Perry's telling them to abandon the fantasy, but you're not going to get them to abandon the fantasy because nobody's going to abandon the system of white supremacy because they believe that they can get this fantasy, but the fantasy does not exist. And they're sitting in the pumpkin patch like Linus, hoping for a good man, wishing for a good man, praying for the good man. But that good man is not based on that criteria. No, the good man is based on the standard of God. And the good man, based on the standard of God, is the one they pass by. They pass him by because, one, they don't want to submit to his authority because they don't want that man because they have a world mind from white supremacy, and that runs diametrically opposed to God. And because that mind runs diametrically from God, what happens is they're looking for something that just is not possible for them to find because the only way to find a man who is serving the Most High is that you have to be following God. You have to be looking to follow God. And if you follow God, he will show you a man who will be a leader. But a lot of women don't want to do that. No, they want somebody of the world standard. But the world standard is one that is created by white supremacy to be anti-black. And it's designed to set somebody up to fail from minute one. That's another thing many people don't understand about these unrealistic expectations that are created by this system. And again, a lot of these people have unrealistic expectations that are impossible for anyone to go out here and make. They have a lot of people out here who have just ridiculous expectations. They want to go out here and get this guy who is already established. Like S Represent made the statement, yeah, they want the guy with the ready-made success who makes the $1 million, who already has the $1 million, the guy who has the big job, the guy who is out here and has the mansion. But there, how do you get that guy, find that guy at all? I mean, that guy isn't even traveling in the social circles many black women travel in. No, that guy, when he's out here, again, even if that kind of guy is out, he's not even out there. I mean, there are guys that have some of those things, but even that's not enough for many of these black women who want something that just does not exist. I mean, there will be guys out here with college educations, guys out here making some decent money, but they'll find something wrong with them. And what they will do is reject a man because either something is missing. And again, they want that perfect ideal, but there's nobody perfect who can meet your imagination. What's in your imagination cannot be made into real reality. No, what is in your imagination for a man cannot exist in the real world, because what we imagine is not reality. No, it's a fantasy. And that's the saddest part about many black women. They have invested so heavily into the fantasy that their whole perception of reality has completely it just doesn't, it's not capable. I mean, that what they want, it does not exist in this plane. I mean, it does not exist at all. I mean, what they want, there's no way that possible out here that you're going to find a millionaire who's submissive to you. I mean, that doesn't exist. I mean, but you have them holding on to this delusion and holding on to this delusion to the point where you have to look at some of these black women who have been taught these dysfunctional ideas, and you have to wonder, is it time to refer many of these women to psychotherapy because they've invested in this fantasy to the point where you have to question their mental health? I mean, you have to question their mental health at this point, because you're investing in a fantasy that to the point where you're just not even seeing that it's a part of the real world. And that's what the whole thing with Tyler Perry getting canceled is all showing me. You've got people so invested in this white supremacist fantasy that they're basically denying reality at this point. And their whole idea of a man it's beyond sanity at this point. I mean, what you see as a man isn't a real man. It's not possible to attain. It's not possible to achieve. And I believe that it's going to take several generations to really wake up and say, hey, many of these ideas that grandma and mama had about men, they're just not something that's anything that's real at all. And that's something that many women have to really start thinking about. I mean, we have 70% of black women single right now, and that number could be going up to 80, maybe 90% at this point. And I believe it could go even higher because, again, as you have people invested in this fantasy, they want this to exist. They want to make it happen, but they oftentimes are the ones who don't see how your fantasy is just not attainable. I mean, what you're looking for, it's not even attainable in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you're looking for this guy who's supposed to have swagger and be a millionaire and be this guy who's supposed to be well educated, and all of these whole tenets, again, they run diametrically opposed to one another. I mean, all of these things, they're just all not possible to achieve or attain. And like Creating Rourke makes the point, yes, white supremacy's fantasy is a delusion, and it really has, yeah, like you said, it did damage to our people because they buy into these fantasies. They want these fantasies to be true. They want to keep, like Joanna said, keep black men and black women apart. And this fantasy basically has done a great job of dividing black men and black women. It has done a job of going out here and it just has divided our people. I mean, it has divided our people, and it's just sad to see our people divided like this. But that's what white supremacy wants to do, and that's why they create these kind of delusions and have us buying into these lies. And these lies, again, mess our people up, and because it's got a lot of our black women buying into these fantasies to the point where they're looking for the fantasy man and passing up on real men. And there are brothers out here who are also buying into the fantasy as well. And again, these fantasies are not good for our health because we're chasing dreams instead of reality. And this is just the thing that has happened. And this Tyler Perry wants the black women to stop buying into he wants them to stop buying into one type of fantasy, but he wants to sell them another one. But the whole thing is, if he really wanted to fix things, I mean, he would start looking to go hire some brothers to go work for him. Because if you've got brothers with jobs, then you have quality men out here who are out here working. And when you've got working men, women get attracted to working men. They want to have relationships with working men. So that's one way that Tyler Perry could go out here and help things out. That's one of the solutions, because every black man that's working, that's how you get women to see real men. When they see real men on the job, when they see real men taking care of business, this is what they see as attractive. And this is what makes women look at a man and going out here and trust him to be competent and capable as a leader. So somebody asked me what the solution was as related to this whole situation. And again, it's just like I talk about in the man crisis, you got to invest in men, because every black man that's invested in, when he's out here working or building, that's a man that shows women an example of manhood. Unfortunately, what we got in the job market is we got a lot of black women who are supporting the HR brick wall because they support feminism, and they also project all their anger about failed relationships with other men onto black men. And because of this, they don't see real black men, because if you see real men every day, you know what a model for manhood is. And if you know what a model for manhood is that you will be able to find and identify what a man is. And you'll be able to identify what a man is by his routine. When you see a brother going to work every day, you know what a man is. You know how a man works. You know how he goes about his business. And you know what to look for in a man. But when you don't have men in your community, you don't really know what to look for in a man. And that's why a lot of black women are out here talking about this social construct, because they don't see black men. I mean, I want to give you guys an example. You go out to the bus in the morning at 6 a.m., or you go to the train station. Who do you see standing outside? You see mostly women going to work. And that's by design by white supremacy, because they don't want you to see men working. No, they don't want to see you seeing men working. No, what they want you to see is, oh, there's no men. But when you see men working, guess what? That gives you an example of, oh, that's what a man is. That man's about his business. That man is taking care of business. That's what you see when you see a man. But the whole thing is, you don't get to see men, because they want to go out here and hire these submissive women to work in the workplace. And then there are no men out here going to work, and not men showing you what a man does as related to purpose. So that's something they don't want to talk about as related to men. And like Reginald says, they don't want to talk about how it takes time for a man to establish himself, because a guy in his 20s, he ain't really there yet. I know when I graduated college in my 20s, a guy who's coming out of college in his 20s, he doesn't have much experience. I mean, he's just trying to get his feet on the ground. And he's just trying to get started. So a lot of women, they want this guy to come out of there in his 20s making $1 million. The only guys who do that are rappers and NBA players, but they won't have money for long. But the average guy, it's going to take him a good 10, 15 years to just get started, and another 20 years to get established. So it's going to take a guy a while to get his stuff together, and it's going to take a guy a while to get his stuff together. But many women don't want to work and build with a man. What they want is a guy who's going to be all making millions and having his mansion and driving Lexuses. But that's an older man. That's not a young guy. But they're expecting these kind of guys to have that together at all. And again, a guy in his 20s, he's starting to get stuff there. He's starting to get it together. I mean, I was where Juwan was when I was in my, 26 or so. When I was working in AmeriCorps, I was trying to get stuff together. I mean, I was just getting my feet, starting to get on my feet before the rug got yanked out from under me. But guys out here in their 20s, they're just pushing. They're just getting their money, and they're just getting their first bank account, starting to stack a few dollars. You're starting to make some connections. You're starting to get your money on point. You're starting to think about, working on saving up, building your savings and getting stuff together. I mean, that's what guys do in their 20s. But a lot of women, because they watch too many rom-coms and too many TV shows, they have this idea that this guy's going to be a superstar coming out the box. Is like, no, that's not how it works. No, no. Most guys, they don't really start to hit their stride until about their 40s. That's when they really start getting solid, because you spend most of your 20s just trying to just get that entry level job, saving your money, stacking your chips, trying to keep that job together. That's what you're doing in your 20s. In your 30s, you're hoping to build your networks and your contacts and hoping to get stuff going and hoping to keep stuff going to the point where you can build some momentum. And then as you go on, you're looking to go out here and have that foundation. Then you can really start getting serious about your money and making some investments like buying a home and stuff like that. But the whole thing is, you have people, they have these, again, unrealistic expectations. And again, a lot of our sisters, they sit there, they watch too much television and too much soap operas. They don't see real people. They don't understand how the world works for men and women, or how it works differently. So that's what a lot of people don't get, because guys like Tyler Perry, they enable fantasies, they enable delusions. And now Tyler Perry wants to speak against the very delusions. He's went out here and sold people. I mean, he sold people for over 20 years the idea of the so-called perfect guy who's coming to save black women. But the whole thing is that savior doesn't exist. And in a lot of cases, that savior isn't looking to put on a cape and try to save women who are just caught up in a delusion, and women who are extremely dysfunctional. They're not coming to save any woman. No, a man wants a woman who's going to be able to work with him as a helpmeet. And how much of a help are you going to be for a man if you're caught up in a fantasy? That's the critical question. Again, I got to ask a lot of the black women who got mad at Tyler Perry, how can you help a man meet his needs if you're looking to help the needs of white supremacy? If you're caught up in this fantasy, you're looking to get the fantasy fulfilled, not looking to help the needs of a man. And that's the other problem that many black women have. And they feel like, oh, I've got to settle for less. No, you've been settling for less for many years because you're outside the order of God. You're outside the word of God. You're still caught up in these fantasies, and you are not getting the very best to live that abundant life. You're not getting anything that's going to help you live an abundant life. No, you're getting a whole lot of ideals. And again, these ideals are just not going to help you achieve anything real. It's sort of like what I'm planning to do in a new video I'm planning for Tia Mowry, who's talking about giving out relationship advice. That's comical, but I'll get next week. She's going on the barbecue next week. But I listened to this whole thing, and again, about Tyler Perry, and I had a whole different live stream planned, but sadly my footage got lost, and I had to improvise today. So I really wanted to talk about this topic because, again, now you got the black women turning on Tyler Perry, and they're turning on him because, again, they don't want to live in reality. They want to live in the fantasy that white supremacy has created. And because they want to live in this fantasy, they've basically shown that the fantasy means more to them than anything in this world. And basically, they're deifying and worshiping this fantasy more than reality itself. I mean, they are at a point where they are spiritually lost, and spiritually lost, I would say, because you want to follow this ideal that's outside the order of God, and you want to follow this ideal, even though this ideal is taking you on a road to hell, where you're going to be single for the rest of your lives, where you're going to be sitting there single for the rest of your lives and miserable for the rest of your lives. I mean, this is just, again, the old sad, pathetic thing about a lot of these black women, so caught up in this fantasy to the point where they just don't want to let go of the fantasy, don't want to see reality, and don't want to see reality as related to this whole situation. I mean, they don't want to accept this whole situation as related to anything don't want to go out here and really accept that they have bought a fantasy that's a bill of sale and that there is no man out there that exists like this. No, they're too afraid to go out here and deal with the reality that you're going to have to deal with real men. And when you deal with those real men, you're going to have to deal with real men who are going to have a different standard for relationships than what you've been told about. A man with a different standard for relationships than you have been presented with, a different standard and series of expectations. And again, they would rather continue to hold on to the fantasy rather than deal with an actual black man who they've been taught to hate. But the whole thing is, if you want a relationship with a black man, you're going to have to go out here and surrender to God and surrender to that man. Two things many black women don't want to do. And that's why they're upset about Tyler Perry, because he's telling them that they have to not just settle, but they have to go out here and submit to that man. And that's something they don't want to do at all, because the white supremacy told them they didn't have to submit. And again, white supremacy is the thing that they're following. They're following white supremacy like a religion. And as they follow white supremacy like a religion, what they are doing is not seeing how this satanic religion is taking them on a road to hell, where they will never find any peace on this earth or find any peace in the next one. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. And before I go, I want everybody to, head over to Amazon and pick up Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. It's a book that will help you get a better understanding of why so many Black women are single. So this is a book that will give you a lot of perspective on why so many sisters can't find a relationship, and why you have many of these women who just can't go anywhere. And again, they just can't really do anything as related to finding that man. So this is the only thing you can do with is get them this book, and I hope it'll help them. And again, you can find this book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, on Amazon.com right now by clicking the link that I just placed in the chat. And if you guys want to help me be able to stay on the air and continue doing more live streams like this, you can send a donation to the Cash App by clicking the link that's in the chat. Or if you want to donate through the PayPal, you can send a donation through the PayPal. All of that money is used for SJS Direct projects like the covers for the 2024 SJS Direct books, and also used to produce many of the comics. Like I want to do an ISIS graphic novel, and that's how I do it, because I use the donations to do that. Before I do the Kickstarter, I pay for everything and try to pay artists. So all of the money that you guys donate and the super chats you give help me out a lot. So I really want to thank you guys who have donated to the super chat. Really appreciate it. And I use that money to again work on future SJS Direct projects. So we got this troll in here who wants to start a lot of mess, but the show is just about over. Again, if you guys want to pick up the books on the SJS Direct imprint, like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, that would be greatly appreciated. And I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream, and I hope you'll be there for next week's stream. Everybody have a good evening, and everybody have a good night.